YouTube, we live in an era of social media where players are scrutinized more than ever in the NBA. And in this video, I'm going to break down how 5 players in the 2024 season really redeemed themselves and took the scrutiny on the chin and said, you know what, I'm going to take the L like a man, come back next season and prove everybody wrong. That's what these 5 players did. Make sure you stick around because it's a really interesting list. You know, a lot of these players have been labeled as frauds or choke artists or bad teammates or, you know, unable to be on a winning team. They come back this year stronger and prove everybody wrong. That's the kind of thing that sports is all about, that you love to see from a competitor. These 5 players have absolutely redeemed themselves in the 2024 NBA season. Let's talk about it. The first player I want to talk about on this list is Russell Westbrook. Now, Russell Westbrook's time with the Lakers really stained his legacy, in my opinion. A lot of people know exactly what I'm talking about if you've been following the NBA. People have labeled Russ as a bad teammate who's selfish, who won't adapt to the game, you know, won't change his play style to win. He doesn't really see his weaknesses like everybody else does, and he's unwilling to fit in with a certain play style, can't shoot, all this stuff. He's, you know, Russell Westbrook is what they called him in LA with the Lakers, and this guy is a first ballot Hall of Famer, which is wild that people are talking about him like that. You know, I don't think the criticism was unfounded by any means in LA. You know, he wasn't a good fit there and it didn't work out clearly, but anyway, he goes to the Clippers, has a really good 2023 playoff series against the Phoenix Suns, proving that, you know, he's a good fit with the Clippers. He re-signs in the offseason last year, returns to the Clippers for 2024, and let me tell you, man, this guy transformed his game defensively like almost like I've never seen. Brook Lopez style transformation. Russell Westbrook was one of the more disruptive perimeter defenders in the entire league this season for a lot of the season. You know, he came out there looking like a defensive specialist, like a defensive first guard, right? Similar effort and intensity to what you'd see to a guard like Patrick Beverley, only Russell Westbrook has a knack for the ball, gets into passing lanes, can finish on the other end when he gets a steal, and he's a lot bigger and able to defend like a 2 guard even. So, you know, Russell Westbrook, you have to give a lot of credit to him for being able to, you know, switch his game and stay on the floor at this stage of his career. You know, I can really see where Russ is coming from, being like, you know, I'm a Hall of Famer, I'm a former MVP, Mr. Triple Double, and now people are telling me I can't play offense. Like, I'm just gonna show him that I can, and that didn't work so well. You know, he kind of got exposed with the Lakers, and then he, you know, really clearly saw that and was like, I gotta change what I'm doing or else I'm not gonna be around very long in the NBA anymore. I'm getting older, I'm not quite as explosive, even though he's still super explosive, but he's not quite, you know, a 27-year-old Russ type of explosion that you see, and this dude just came out and defended and hooped out this season, and you got to give him props. I think Russell Westbrook clearly redeemed himself in 2024 and should be on a roster with a good role in a rotation next season. The second player I want to talk about is Kelly Oubre Jr. Now, I don't know if you guys remember this, but Kelly Oubre Jr., he's a guy that can score the ball, right? And he's been labeled a lot of times as a shot chucker, you know, inefficient offensive guy that can only score on, you know, a lot of points on bad teams. Ended up averaging 20 points per game with the Charlotte Hornets in 2023. And then people said, oh, well, that's because he was on the Hornets, and, you know, some rumors came out about he was being a bad teammate and selfish and loved to take shots, you know, would take away shots from other players, and is an eccentric personality, so that didn't really help his situation as a role player. You know, people are like, he can't be a role player for a really good team because he's just going to want to shoot the ball whenever he wants, right? It's hard to fit into a team like that as a role player, as a clear, you know, catch and shoot guy when you have that reputation. So in the offseason, you'd think a 20-point scorer would get a lot of offers, and big ones, right? Like 20 points per game, $20 million a year for 3 years, right? That is not what happened to Kelly Oubre. He ended up taking a really low-level deal with the 76ers this offseason, my 76ers. It was a great addition. Love you, Kelly. And Kelly Oubre has never played in an NBA playoff series since he was with Washington. So this is a guy who, you know, comes in with a lot of talent to the Sixers, got really disrespected in NBA free agency in 2023, comes in on a 1-year prove-it deal, prove that you can be on a really good team as a role player and not the guy on a bad team, right? Kelly Oubre comes in for the Sixers, makes an immediate impact. I mean, this guy was incredible on both ends of the floor. I watch the Sixers every game this season like a hawk. I'm just a, you know, diehard Sixers fan, right? Kelly Oubre was one of my favorite players on the team. He does have a little bit of tendencies to be inconsistent, especially from behind the arc, but let me tell you, man, Kelly Oubre provided so much to this team this season. And, you know, you might say, well, Dehave, they got bounced out in the first round. Is that really a great team? Let me tell you something about Nick Nurse. If Nick Nurse doesn't think you can be a role player when the Sixers are trying to make it to the finals this season, I know they, you know, had no business doing that, but that was the goal, right? If Coach Nurse doesn't think you can do that, you're out of the rotation. I don't care who you are. I don't care what your contract is. You're out. Kelly Oubre stuck with it. He played a different role this season than he's ever played. You know, he played a lot of off ball, provided a lot of good perimeter defense, right? And listen, man, Kelly Oubre really redeemed himself in 2024 because next season he's going to get a big contract. I don't know if it's from the Sixers or whoever, but Kelly Oubre will get a multi-year extension, and it just proves that, you know, he is definitely a guy that can fit in on a really good team. His ego won't be an issue. And if anything, he can add to a team quite a bit as opposed to taking it down a notch. So I expect him to get a big payday in the offseason. Hopefully it's with my Sixers. Love you, Kelly. The third guy I want to mention on this list is Dillon the Villain Brooks, man. I can't say enough great things about Dillon Brooks. Talk about a bad reputation. It's about as bad as he get going into this season when he signs his contract with Houston, signs a massive deal with Houston, and people are like, what are they doing? Oh my goodness, they made a big mistake signing this guy for a long-term deal when they have young guys that he could influence, right? And we all know, you know, Dillon Brooks, the one thing throughout his time with Memphis and stuff like that, that people love to say he's a issue with the team and shot chucker, bad shooter, big ego, just doesn't understand what he's doing, right? Nobody could say he was a bad defender. The dude is a all NBA caliber defender year in and year out. So that's the one thing he's going to provide right away in Houston. We know Dillon to be a guy that tries to get under people's skin, similar to a Draymond Green, but maybe not as effective at it in Memphis. Only ended up hurting them more than helping them, you could say. Offensively, takes a lot of shots, takes a lot of bad shots, super inefficient, hard to win with in Memphis, right? He comes to Houston, let me tell you, not only was he much more efficient with Houston, I would say he's pretty average across the league, you know what I mean? He was well below average in Memphis in terms of efficiency, offensively primarily, from all areas of the floor, right? He took a lot of shots, too many shots, and then he shot 43% from the field this year with Houston, played 72 games, provided solid defense. He shot 36% from three, which is league average, like I said, and 84% from the line. So not only was he really good defensively and provided an edge to this team that otherwise didn't have any. Talk about guys like Jalen Green needing to have a little more edge to them. Dillon Brooks really makes up for that in that regard, clearly being a really good signing for Houston. And guess what? Nobody's talking about Dillon Brooks anymore because, you know, people only like to talk about him when he's doing something bad or, you know, dumb, trash talking LeBron or something like that. Hey, nobody's talking about Dillon Brooks this year, and that's a good thing because dude just came out there and played for Houston every single game, provided really good quality minutes, proving why he got that deal, and it was a good signing by Houston. Again, this is what sports are about, man. I love when a player that's so hated goes out and just shuts everyone up, right? Even if I hate them, I gotta, you know, tip my cap because that's just what you love to see about sports. That's a competitive spirit, and that's a guy who cares about the game so much he's willing to change his entire game for it. Dillon Brooks totally flipped the script on his NBA career this season, and let me tell you, if he had a really bad season with Houston, a lot of that contract, from what I understand, is non-guaranteed. He might be out of the NBA in a couple years. So listen, Dillon Brooks, massive signing for Houston, really worked out well, and you got to feel really good for the guy because, you know, all the hate he was getting, and a lot of it, you know, a lot of criticism deserved, let me put it that way. He comes out and flips the script. You love to see it, man. Big shout out and props to Dillon Brooks. The next guy is someone I repeatedly talk trash to on this channel, you know, when I started this NBA video uploading thing, and, you know, it's because I'm a 76ers fan. I get passionate, and, you know, I really had a hard time with the James Harden saga. You know, it really affected the Sixers fan base. You know, here's James Harden again, disappointing everyone in the playoffs and leaving a team in really selfish fashion and leaving the team in a bad spot. And you could blame Daryl Morey, you could blame him. I blame, you know, James Harden for a lot of that, but that's beside the point. James Harden gets a ton of criticism in the offseason once again. Shocker, right? Some of this is deserved, right? Too, like all of these guys, you know, there's some things that are true about their criticism. I think it goes a little bit over the top sometimes, but for James Harden, you know, he's known to be a playoff choker and fraud and stuff like that. You know, plays great. He's an all-time great player. Again, first ballot Hall of Famer type player. But, you know, he has a bad history in the playoffs, and that was no different with the Sixers. Sixers trade him to the Clippers this year, and I actually think he had maybe the best playoff series of, you know, his career in the past few years, because at a lot of times throughout that series against the Dallas Mavericks, he looked like the best player for the Clippers. I think if Kawhi Leonard was healthy, you know, that might not have been the case, but James Harden was a really good stability piece for the Clippers in the playoffs, you know, which is insane to even say out loud because that has been the opposite of what he's been throughout his career. But James Harden had a lot of pressure on him going to LA. You know, if he didn't play well, man, again, another thing where it's like he could be out of the league in a few years because of all the trouble he's causing these teams. At a certain point, the talent's not worth the headache, right? But James Harden really put that to bed. You know, he came into LA, he did his job, he played fantastic basketball, did everything the Clippers asked him to do. It was, you know, a little up and down throughout the season, but overall, James Harden was a huge positive for the Clippers, and I expect him to re-sign with the Clippers and stay there for maybe the remainder of his career even. You know, James Harden, after everything I've said, I apologize, right? It's water under the bridge. Stay away from my Sixers, though. That's all I gotta say, man. Stay away from my Sixers or you'll get it too. But James Harden, man, you know, props to you, and I gotta respect everything you did for the Clippers this season because especially in the playoffs, man, you really balled out, and it's a, you know, reputation enhancer, I think, this season for James Harden. You have to give him a little bit of leeway for next season and seasons moving forward because because listen, he really did what he was supposed to do this year and handle business, and that's not something we can always say. So props to James Harden and total respect and commendation for his play this season, shutting everybody up about his playoff, drops in production, including myself. Big redemption from James Harden. Now, the final guy on this list, other than Ben Simmons maybe, which I'd love to be making this video next year about Ben Simmons, because another guy that really cost my Sixers a lot of things. But listen, water under the bridge. I want the best for Ben Simmons, and I want the best for this guy. Fortunately for this guy, who I'm about to mention, the last guy on the list and maybe the best player on the list, I thought personally going into this year there was no hope for this guy's future. I shouldn't say no hope, but in terms of what we thought he could be, right? Like, this guy was a generational talent, supposed to be everything in this league, maybe one of the faces of the league moving forward, and had some really rocky seasons and some off-court stuff going on that, struggled to stay in shape. This guy really turned things around, man. I know he had some rocky moments throughout the season, but in that play-in tournament game, holy cow, folks, this was the guy we've all been waiting to see. When he got drafted #1 out of Duke, we watched all the college highlights, him just bullying other players. We watched his rookie season, we watched his high school highlights. We just want to see that guy again, man. And in the play-in tournament, dropping a 40+, unfortunately ending with an injury. You hate to see that, man. Please stay healthy. Zion Williamson is the last guy on the list, who in that just one game is all it took for me to be back on board, man. Zion looked like the Zion we want to see, right? He was absolutely dominant against the LA Lakers in that play-in tournament. And people forget the Lakers have maybe the most, best size in the front court of any team, right? Listen, man, there was no answer for that guy that game. And like I said, 40+ in that game, just totally dominated. And I actually think the Pelicans win that game if he doesn't, leave with that hamstring. I think it was a hamstring, right? Yeah. So unfortunate for Zion. Please get well soon, Zion. I was off the train at the end of last year, like I think most people were, shutting down in the playoffs, and Zion just never seemed to be available when his team needed him, right? And he really, I think, took that to heart. He said in before this playoff run for the Pelicans, who looked really good this year, but unfortunately the injury is so bad, man. You hate to see that, especially when a guy's making a comeback like this. But I think Zion really feels, bad for not being there for his team when they need him because of, not being able to stay in shape and stuff like that. And I think he's really gonna turn a new leaf, man. I really think he's turning this thing around. And look out next year, man, because Zion's coming and nobody can stop him when he's going, because this dude is one of the most dominant athletes I've ever seen in the NBA, up there with a Giannis type of freak level. Like, this guy just has physical traits that you just don't see every day, right? And you don't see every year in the draft. And he's a special type of talent. And this guy could really be, like I said, one of the faces of the league, along with Luka Doncic, SGA, Victor Wembanyama, and Anthony Edwards in a few years from now. It could be those few guys. And please get well soon, Zion, and show us, I think, for me personally, Zion with that performance in the play-in tournament, the bar was really low, and he just raised that by about 40 miles once again. And I think really redeemed himself, man, because that's a game where if he doesn't show up, it's totally over. Everyone's not going to respect him anymore after that at all. I know some people are still holding out hope for Zion because he's one of the more hype players, young players in the NBA in the last decade or so, right? But after the last couple of years, people really started getting off the Zion train and, started not expecting much from him and kind of moving on to different players. But I think a lot of people like me were surprised watching that game and being like, this dude's legit. Like, this is the guy we want to see. Please be like that every game. And, if he can do that, somewhat next year, I think he's fully redeemed. And, he's on his way, right? That play-in tournament game, look it up if you guys haven't. He was absolutely dominant. Please come back next year, healthy and motivated, Zion. We love to see it. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video, man. Let me know down in the comment section if I missed anybody, right? I was considering guys like Embiid because he had a pretty good playoff series and people didn't expect much from him in the playoffs. He's a playoff faller, like I said, production wise, but came out, scored a lot of points, and was pretty much Embiid on a bad knee for, most of those playoffs games against the Knicks. So let me know down in the comments who you guys have on your top 5 most redemption lists, redemption arc players, right? Because it's fun to talk about this stuff. Hopefully, like I said, Ben Simmons and Ja Morant could be the prime 2 candidates for next season, but we've been saying about this Ben Simmons stuff for years, especially in Philadelphia with my team. So we'll have to see about that, but Ja Morant's the one I think to watch next season. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Make sure you guys subscribe to the channel if you guys haven't already. We upload every single day on this channel, things just like this. Make sure you guys don't miss it. Subscribe, turn on post notifications. Would love to have you, man. I'm just a passionate basketball fan. Our community is called Dehave Nation. Please join if you guys could be so kind. But hopefully you guys have a great rest of your day today. Like I said, let me know down in the comments who you think should be on the list, and I will catch you guys on the next one. This is your boy Dehave, and as always, peace.